Hello everyone, so today we'll be looking at the Shrine Anchorite for the Trench Pilgrims in Trench Crusade, doing a little bit of a model review and also building the model. I'll put the stat block up on screen for you now. So as you can see, the Shrine Anchorite is a massive melee threat to add into your Trench Pilgrim warbands. It's tough, which means that it's basically got that sort of shield, so once it dies the first time, it's not taken out of action. It can carry on the fight for you. It pretty much auto hits with the Catherine wheel, and that bone breaker mace can be really lethal in combat. So what I've had is this Shrine Anchorite that you can see here. It's been printed from the STLs and it comes in several different parts, and we'll go over those in a moment. I've had it printed on an Elegoo Saturn 4 Ultra in 8K Elegoo vanilla resin, and as you can see, this is quite hard, quite sturdy resin. It's come out in very nice quality. So if I just compare that for a second to some miniatures I got the other day, they are in, again, on an Elegoo Saturn 4. These are in 12K resin, but it's water washable resin. Now if I get this communicant here, now you can see that the communicant's weapons are a little flexible, and that is an issue that you might sometimes find with water washable resin, that the miniatures are a little bit more flexible. There's a bit more sort of give to the final sculpt. The print quality is great, as you can see, on both miniatures, but for gameplay I would recommend, and even for the small parts, probably going with a non-water washable resin just for that extra sturdiness. So commenting again on that sturdiness, even with the small parts. So in the 12K water washable resin, that anti-tank armor for my War Prophet is, as you can see, quite flexible. But if I compare that to the pole arm of a Plague Knight, as you can see, they're about the same sort of thickness, but the Plague Knight doesn't really have much give in that. It's much more sturdy on the pole arm. But as you can see there, with how the Warhammer for the War Prophet was very flexible, I've had to replace it with a cocktail stick to make sure that it's nice and sturdy and it'll be able to hold up to a little bit of gameplay. But I won't have to do that with these miniatures. So let's get those things out the way and let's get building my Shrine Anchorite. So what you might notice is that Shrine Anchorite is actually quite large. Now, the normal Shrine Anchorite model is pretty big. They're about the same size as the brazen bulls of the Iron Sultanate. But as you can see here, this Shrine Anchorite is going to be a fair bit larger, and that's because I've had it printed in 125% scale. The reason being that I'm going to run it as a Grand Anchorite if I ever choose to run my Trench Pilgrims as a War Pilgrimage of St. Methodius. And I'll just put the Grand Anchorites rules up on here for you so you can have a quick look at those, and we'll get down to building. So he still goes on a 60mm base, which might pose some problems for me. So what I'm going to need to do is, when I build the leg, I want that to go onto the base in such a way that I can still pose it on this terrain piece that comes with the kit, but it's not overstepping or overhanging on the base too much. So I am using some Gorilla Super Glue, and we'll just get started on that. So what I'm going to do first is stick down that nice terrain piece. This is an old 60mm base from a miniature that I need to rebase, so it's perfect to use for this. Bit of recycling going on there. Right then. So I'll set that to one side and we'll start building the body, but I'm not going to put on the second leg yet. So first off, what I'm thinking of doing is having my anchorite looking across as though it's stepping forward to challenge someone. So I quite like that sort of pose. And so stick a bit of glue onto the midsection. Choose a pose I like. And I'll leave that a couple of seconds to set. So it's really nicely detailed, and I quite like this emblem here on the chest. That's the emblem of the Trench Pilgrims, and it's going to be quite enjoyable to paint. So with this, I'm going to paint it in a rusty scheme with some corrosion coming through from its paint to show some age. But that emblem I'm going to paint in a more shinier gold. So there'll be a couple of different textures, a couple of different ways of painting things that we'll be looking at with this, including sort of painting some terrain as well. So the chains, they've come out really nicely. And each of these little picture frames as well. I think I need to work out something to do with those, but it is a really, really nicely detailed sculpt, which I really enjoy. Even the head has come out very nice. It's that sort of typical Trench Pilgrim sort of chapel vibe for the head. Be careful of these spikes. They are quite sharp. They are a bit pointy. The weird thing is, though, with the Shrine Anchorite, I mean, you put the head on and it's kind of... Where are the eyes? Where's it looking? It can be looking anywhere. I could have put the head on backwards. I'm never going to know. But let's get that glued down and move on. Give that a little push there. What I do find with some of these sculpts is that there might be a gap for something, but the way the prints come out may mean that it doesn't necessarily fit into that gap particularly well for whatever reason. It might just take a little bit of fiddling around. With this, I think it's going to be fine. It'll just sit on there and that glue will hold it. But for some other things, you might just need to slightly trim them down. Now let's have a look at the Anchorite breaking wheel. I'll just rest him on his side there. Oop, the head's fallen off. Tell you what, I won't rest him on his side. I'll try and sort of prop him up with his arms. There we go, I'll just leave him balanced on there for a second. So the breaking wheel. I'm going to go with this breaking wheel, this Catherine wheel for the Anchorite, because with it being at 125% scale, the guy, the pilgrim on that Catherine wheel, is about the same size as a communicant. He's a pretty hefty boy. So I think that's going to look a little bit odd. Trench pilgrims aren't usually that size, and you wouldn't break a communicant on the wheel. It's usually stigmatic nuns or just normal pilgrims, so I'll be going with the empty wheel for now. But I'll be using this for some sort of terrain piece in the future, so look out for that conversion. So moving on to the arms. Now we have there very nice detailing on the arms, as you can see. Really nicely done with the crosses, but as you can see in the mechanism there are a couple of little supports, so just make sure that you're checking the model for these supports, as you can see in there. And it's really simple to get rid of them. All we do is just with your clippers, with these, it's just a case of going in and just really gently scraping them off. Just cleaning them out. There we go. Now there are some at the back there, but I'm not too bothered about those. The chains will cover them up quite nicely anyway, so I can leave that as is. Right then, so put that down there a sec, and let's have a look at that Bonebreaker mace. So the Bonebreaker mace, especially on this Anchorite, is massive. I mean, this is a Trench Pilgrim next to 125% scale Bonebreaker mace, which means that roughly a normal anchorite, the normal sized anchorites, will probably be carrying a mace about the size of a pilgrim. So still pretty big. Pretty hefty pieces of kit. So before I move on to the arms fully, what I'll do is I'm going to pose my anchorite. So as I was saying, I want it sort of stepping across this rock here. So to do that, let's get a generous amount of super glue onto that leg, onto that foot. So this might need a little bit of time to set, so what I'll do is I will carry on recording, but I'll cut that out with a video, hold that here, and then we'll join back in a couple of seconds. Here we have the finished piece, the finished Shrine Anchorite. Now, partway through recording, my camera ran out of battery and I thought I'd lost all of this video's audio and all this video's recording, but I didn't. I just lost a small section in the middle there. So what I've done is I carried on building, and now we're back with the full model. So let's take a look at it in its ginormous glory. So I'll try and get close there so you can see all these details. And what I'm going to be doing with the painting video with this Shrine Anchorite is doing a rusted look, like I said earlier on. So we're going to be getting into all of these little pits here with some rust effects, into all these rivets. This is going to be gold, and these little frescoes here, these will be gold as well. Now I've gone with that unpilgrimed breaking wheel, because if I ever run it as a war pilgrimage of St. Methodius, I need to make sure that I don't have a pilgrim on the wheel, as they can't break pilgrims on the wheel. I've also gone into all the cracks and cleaned up the little mould lines. Sorry, not mould lines, the little bits of support. Now with the backpack and the arms, what I've had to do, and I couldn't show this on the video as I lost it, was I've had to clip off some of the backpack's prong that sits into the back of the body, just so that it fits a bit snugger for these. Now, as it happens, I'm not too bothered about these gaps. They're not going to be that visible during gameplay. They're barely visible on the camera, as you can see there, but it's just to make sure that this fit closer in, because as I was saying earlier on with the head, the 3D print, sometimes those sort of pegs and the holes, they don't line up very well. Sometimes it could just be that the printer has added an extra bit where it shouldn't have done, or it's just not come out the way you were expecting. But there we have a nice big anchorite. As I said, this will be a grand anchorite for me in the War Pilgrimage of St. Methodius if I do choose to run that on the tabletop, but in my normal trench pilgrims, it's just going to be a giant problem for my enemies. So I can't wait to paint it on the channel for you guys. Please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, let me know what you'd like to see me review next or paint up. If you'd like to see my review of the Trench Pilgrims warband that I got earlier on this week, click the video link to your left. And if you'd like to learn more about the lore of the Anchorites, click the video link to your right. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all soon.